In my 49.
This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And folks, here we are on September the 29th, 2023. And I was kind of reminded on a post last night that 6 years ago today, I had Blue Lou Marini from the Blues Brothers on the show. But also that day was my last day at work at my family's spring water plant where I was for 19 years. So September 29th is kind of interesting for me. But today we got another reason to celebrate September the 29th because, the dude abides. We are celebrating the 25th anniversary of The Big Lebowski. A film had very little advertising when it came out. I saw it in theaters completely, like, because we didn't get Fargo at our theaters, so I wasn't as schooled on the Coen brothers as I would become. And I went into The Big Lebowski totally blind. And it was a movie I went to more than once, and I had a blast. And today we are going to celebrate that 25th anniversary of a guy who, you know, just bought a brand new Corvette and he's just, parked it out front and is hoping there's no disturbances with it. Folks, I give you the awesome Louis Colina. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, Luis Colina is right. I mean, my name is one of the easiest to pronounce in Spanish, but it's so complicated in English. Luis. I mean, it's Luis. But if I
Well,
say like that, they spell it Louise. So
it's
anyway, I
funny.
pick it up on it.
Mine's one of the easiest in English, and yet Christmas time when I get gifts, it's people. I have one G at the end of my name, but I got relatives that still spell it with two G's at the end, and I'm like, well, if there's money in the envelope, I'm fine. I'm not gonna complain.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
beggars can be choosers, right?
Yep, that's right. Look what I'm wearing.
Oh, you are wearing the proper attire for the movie.
Yes, this is the Big Lebowski t-shirt. And I got one for my brother as well. Yeah,
Right.
I love this film. I can't believe it's been 25 years since that film came out. And I'm like, it's funny because that year the highest grossing film was something I didn't care for and I haven't watched since, called Armageddon.
No,
And it's kind of funny how Armageddon's hardly ever talked about today. That and Deep Impact were pretty much Xeroxes of each other. Whereas films like The Big Lebowski and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and Dark City and movies like that came out in 1998, they've generated quite a sizable cult following since 1998. Interesting how that works, isn't it?
yeah, that is correct. In our case, I mean, I'm sure Jonita never expected, neither did I, for this film to become what he did. I mean, and I'm sure you're familiar with the Lebowski Festival and all that.
Not only that, I had Bill Green on, who was one of the
Yeah,
organizers for that. I had him on a few years back.
yeah, I believe Bill is the poster and T-shirt designer, right?
I
Yeah,
don't remember. I think so. Yeah.
yeah, he
Yep.
done. Yeah, yeah, that was
So,
an amazing story. Go ahead.
I was going to say I had him on, and it's amazing where the Big Lebowski has come from, and I'm wondering if even the Coen brothers themselves have even grasped this because they've done so many great movies. They're
Right.
terrific directors, terrific writers, and yet the Big Lebowski seems to be the one that people gravitate to. Not that I'm going to complain about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if familiar. I mean, I got to know Joe Nathan fairly well back then, and it's what I call one of my happiest accidents in life in terms of how we cross paths. Because I was, based here in LA, transferred from the Bay Area, originally from Venezuela, kind of stumbled upon editing, which I was working with a very reputable, still alive, my mentor, Tom Noble, as an assistant. And we found ourselves like, okay, in the 90s, I'm telling I'm ready to be an editor. So, and he, in order to, not, hold on to me, he said, well, who would you like to work with? And I said, Joe and Ethan were on top of that list. I believe it was like a short list, Quentin Tarantino, which was, had Sally Menke, and then David Fincher, certain directors that I just love their style. And Joel and Ethan, since, I think my first film, I think it was Raising Arizona. Then I went back to see their earlier ones. I just loved them. And sure enough, before I know it, he said, we're doing their next film, and the Hot Soccer Proxy in Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm like, whoa. So I had to kind of like pack, put everything in storage, pack my car, and drove across country for this new adventure. And that's how, we met them. As you know, and, please stop me because I can go on and on.
Oh, go for it.
They edit their own films. Basically, once I met Joel and Ethan, I realized, I don't want to say, can I curse in this program?
Go ahead.
I was fucked in terms of like, I would never be this good. I mean, you just got to be realistic. When you see the way the mind operates and how prolific they are, and like, and the vision, and it's just unbelievable. It was really intimidating to be near, and I've been near some great names. Luckily in the Bay Area, my first mentor was Milos Forman, and Francis Ford Coppola was there. George Lucas, Old Science, all these big names. But and they're all great in their own way. But being closely with Joel and Ethan during the shooting of Hot Soccer, and then during the editing in New York, and seeing how they operated, was like, wow, I would never achieve this level, no matter how hard I try. So, I mean, and that kind of like ended my aspirations as a director. I thought, well, maybe I can stick it with editor, because they actually were the ones who like say to my boss, Tom, we don't really need you, but we'd like to keep Luis. I think we just hit it off in personalities. You know what I mean? They just love who I am. And I think I discovered later that they just love the fact that I was very easily amused or pissed. So they love seeing me ranting or pissing, or they will show me things, cuts that they will do just to see my reaction. Anyway, it was just like a fascinating interaction with them, living in New York, which is their hood, even though they are from Minneapolis, but they're total New Yorkers now. And seeing their world, it was just fascinating. And they have all these scripts already written. I mean, they got like 20, 30 scripts already written. Like Lebowski was sitting on shelves for years because they've been kind of waiting for Bridges to become available. You know what I mean? And you'll see this bookshelf with like, oh my God, these are all scripts that they haven't, and then the phone will ring, and I'm the editing room, or answer the phone, or assistants, and they were like Tom Hanks or Mel Gibson's or all these big names that they were just trying to find their way into their films, and they were not amused by it. They were just, I mean, you just have to be there to understand how they are, because I can describe it, and they're really down to earth, guys, and they just love their gift, and their movie. They love making movies. They surround themselves with wonderful team of people, and if you look them up, it's pretty much the same crews over and over. So there's a level of trust inherited with them, and it's just wonderful. I mean, how they operate, how they work, how solid their vision is, and everybody who worked with them, they just love it. You know what I mean? I think for the most part, and those who don't, they'll never be invited again. You know what I mean? And we can all speculate about those things. It's like a Nicolas Cage. How come he's never invited again? I don't know. I know Nick from other, from the Coppola side, his madness and craziness, but they never kind of invited him in. They had the group of actors, Steve Buscemi and John Turturro and the recurring,
John
kind of
Goodman.
character
Yep.
actors that surround themselves, and then they might have replaced the lead. Sometimes they prefer the leads, and of course Frances being, the queen of it all. Again, another wonderful person who's like down to earth. What it's just they are just unreal. And I kind of knew it then, but as I was 98, and we're 25 years later, and I already been through a lot since then, and I still look back with nostalgia for those years, and even the ones in the Bay Area. It's like my life never turned out to be that great since I left the Bay Area or New York. I mean, just getting the grind. But anyway, I'll stop so you can ask me.
Well, I was
Or
going to reflect back. You mentioned the Hudsucker Proxy, which is a
right,
Coen Brothers movie that's not brought up a lot. But I wanted to
right.
ask, because Jennifer Jason Leigh was in that, and I like her.
I
Did you get
love
to
them.
meet her?
Oh
Huh?
yeah. I mean that's the thing. I mean, we were like in this Wilmington. There's nothing to do there. So, I was fortunate enough that work in the past with um what's his name? Famous Italian producer now. Jesus, King Kong, whatever. His name is my brain is completely
I was going to say
anyway.
Peter Jackson, but
No, 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 no. This guy's Italian, and he
yeah, I
is
know.
De Laurentiis, Dino.
Oh,
Dino De
okay, yeah.
Laurentiis, basically built those studios in Wilmington for his own production. Then he owns this magnificent real estates everywhere. And then at that time, Tim Robin and Susan Sarandon were a couple, and they were staying at his place. So we were always kind of like having dinner parties or eating, kind of like interacting. And also, the highlight for me of that trip, besides Joan Eaton and everybody else, was meeting the icon of Paul Newman. I mean, I never in my wildest dream thought I would. I met some of these famous people,
Hmm.
from Pacino's and all James Caan and all those guys and Harrison Ford, but to work in a film with one of them, with Paul, was like amazing. You know what I mean? And I thought that was a misunderstood film, an underrated film,
Yeah.
a fantastic film. Um, that I think people were turned off by Jennifer's kind of like I would guess Catherine Hepburn kind of like thing. I don't know why people didn't dig that film, but I thought that film was visionary.
I enjoyed it. I've always been a big fan of Jennifer Jason Leigh,
Yeah,
yeah. And it's funny, you mentioned Paul Newman, the first name I thought it was Jennifer Jason Leigh, but
right.
you know, but I remember seeing the Big Lebowski. I gotta show you some merch I got here just for for kicks, I got a couple books here, but I got them stashed away because when I moved into this apartment in 2020, I still get stuff in boxes. But I know
Well,
I got a couple of Big Lebowski books. One of them I found at a Christian bookstore here called The Gospel According to the Coen Brothers. And it was a book all about the religious undertones of the
right.
Big Lebowski, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the dude Jeff has been, kind of like associated strongly with the Zen movement, and he's, he's been interpreted as a Zen Buddhism, kind of like relaxed type of guy, and
Hmm.
he kind of like digs into it. He kind of loves it because that's who he is.
Hmm.
So, in that regard, yeah, the
Well,
Lebowski have that.
I got this nice hardcover Blu-ray. It's got a booklet inside it.
Right,
Yeah, I got that. 4K.
nice.
Yep, I got it in 4K, and I got the Steelbook I got a lot of Lebowski merch here. And this was something I did find I dug out. This is a box.
Right.
Got various little items in it. So if I open this up in this thing, this is a mouse pad of the rug.
Yes. That ties the room.
They had this for Big Lebowski, and they had it for Office Space as well.
I bet.
Yeah. Um, you got a little booklet in here.
Yeah.
And we have oh, Little Lebowski Urban Achievers Certificate of
Very good. Yeah. That's good.
Oh, my background is kind of blending
The
it in there,
background is
but
kind of like, yeah,
yeah,
interfere
an award to like I thought this was fun, and we have
the
I'm
mug.
staying finishing my coffee, Walter. Got a
Right.
mug, and it's got the dude and Walter there.
Right.
But inside this cup, we have the dude abides. We've got a little magnet with the dude on it.
Right.
And we have a little patch you can sew on yourself, the dude. And last but not least, I got me a toe with nail polish, green nail polish.
Ignorance, yes.
I saw this. I mean, Office Space had they like I said, they have one for that as well, and had a bunch of items, and I had to grab it. I think they had South Park and all of those, and I was like, what a great little package. I got one for my younger brother as well, who's my manager, and he uh I got him a bunch because he also likes the Big Lebowski. So, did you ever see this little package before?
Yeah, I seen many, and like I say, in the festivals, all the merchandise is kind of available, and a lot of it is online. So
Mhm.
each festival has like a design for the T-shirts and the posters, and then you go around and people come in. Have you been in the festival?
I haven't. No,
Oh,
actually, it's funny you mentioned that because I've lived here. I'm 51 years old. I've lived here my entire life. I'm in Fredericton, New Brunswick, so I'm 4 hours ahead of you. And it's interesting because I lived here my entire life, never ventured out of the province except maybe for Prince Edward Island. And Lisa Langlois, who was in the movie Class of 1984, was on my show a couple times, and she invited me to join her in Toronto for Horrorama, which is a horror film convention. And I couldn't say no to that. So it became my first time on a plane, my first time outside the city. And I was nervous until I did it, and I just fell in love with it. In fact, I'm assisting Lisa at her third convention this next month, actually, for Frightmare in the Falls. So she kind of introduced me to that environment, and I really enjoyed because I've been doing this podcast since 2015. It's something I kind of fell into. So this is pretty amazing, and I get to promote movies I really like The Big Lebowski. You know,
right.
but I was going to ask, because you of course, you look quite a bit different than you did in the film. You don't have the
Yeah,
beard, and
I have a
yeah,
full bit of hair. I was
yeah,
holding on to the last hair. I used to have a ponytail and everything for the longest time, kind of like a Yun Turturro character.
yeah.
You know,
And of
He-
course, you're the one whenever, little Larry's not answering the question about whether that was his homework, which they brought in a
right,
nice little baggie. And they go out there and Walter decides, this is what happens when you fuck a
right,
stranger in the ass, and he takes crowbar and starts beating this poor Corvette to pieces, you know?
Right.
And of course, lights come on and you come running out there. It goes, "What are you doing? I just paid for this car. Yeah, I bought this car yesterday." And then you go, "I kill your fucking car." You run over at the like you'd notice any damage on the dude's car.
You know, it was just revenge was all in my head, and all I can think of it. You know, you fuck my car, I fuck yours. So, which is a lot of what that movie was about. You know, the annihilus, what like that. Fuck me, no fuck. You know, so I'm noticing that right now as I speak to you about it. Yeah, it was a tricky scene. I mean, I don't know if you want to know any of the background how I got it being
Please.
cast in this movie, because while we were editing the House Sucker Proxy in New York and having a lot of fun, Joel and Ethan, I don't remember who brought it up, but I think it was either Joel who said we should cast a part for Luis in our next movie. And of course, I thought they were full of shit. You know, they're like, yeah, sure, right, whatever. And went on, and I, one of the things that I regret it was leaving New York. I should have probably stayed. Who knows why my career would have been if I would have stayed with them. But my son was living back here in Oakland, so I felt like I needed to be in the West Coast. And the weather in New York wasn't my friend. I mean, I'm not a winter person coming from Venezuela, so decided to come. And then a couple of years go by because the hot soccer was 94 or 5.
For
4, so that was
94, I think it was
so 3
94. And
years.
then they
Yeah,
did Fargo, then the Big
yeah,
Lebowski.
when
Yeah.
it exploded, and then then 3 years later, the phone rang. We kind of like kept in touch here and there, and then they will be shooting around in LA. I will see them. And it was then saying, are you ready? And I said, what are you talking about? Well, we got this part for you. Just, you want to come and read for us? And I'm not going to audition. I'm not an actor. I mean, even though I did acting in Venezuela, a little bit theater, but I didn't have any aspirations of that. I was just basically being an editor. So no, just come and read the part. So I go in there, and they were here in Hollywood, in some warehouse, and with the casting director John Lyons, which also one of the persons they work all the time. And they basically want me to read this thing, and so I basically did my bit, and I turn around and they're like laughing their asses off. I mean, they don't laugh out loud; they're just like silent kind of laugh. And the three of them are laughter. So I guess I got the part, and they're like, yeah, yeah. And I walk out of the room, like having the part, and I get fit. I mean, also they work with Mary Sulfur, which is a costume designer they always use. Wonderful lady too. And so she kind of like, and initially I was supposed to wear boxers, which I went, no way. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna turn this off. And then so we came out with this semi outfit thing with like a wife beater thing, and so kind of like all ready to go. So this scene, as you know, were nights, and I was working as editor during the day, so I would come at night. And a couple of times I think there was twice they called me and they didn't get to my scene because they run over. So I was getting a little like exhausted, tired, and I was in this little trailer like they have for extras. So they knock on the door and they say, "You ready?" And I sure, like with an attitude. So I walking down the stairs and I see this band that had John Goodman, Jeff Bridges, and Steve Buscemi in it, and the driver who come knock on my door. And as I step down, I literally kind of shitting my pants. I'm like, what the F am I doing here with these icons? You know what I mean? And I was like, white. I remember they drove to the set, and Ethan immediately saw me, and he just got me on the side. We used to do this for fun, like a screaming therapy thing, and he got me kind of out of it. And Francis McDermott was also there, kind of like trying to get me, to relax, because I was just like, what am I doing here? What am I doing? Totally nervous. So we rehearsed it because there was tricky scene, because I needed to get there when Joel's motion was this way. So it's, kind of like had to count the paces. It was not as easy as it seemed, because if he was smashing the Corvette, I had to stand there, wait for him to come back. So you know what I'm saying? The crowbar needed to be over here for me to grab it from behind him. So I think we ended up doing like 14 takes. And I think I remember, I think we used the 12, I'm not sure. And you know, the coverage and the DP, Roger Dickens, all these people that they were behind the camera were all friends that I knew from the movie. So that made it easier for me in a way, but also strange because these are my friends looking at me acting. So, but then after I got into it, John Goodman was strange because he's in character. He doesn't get our character until, you know, the rap. Jeff was great, and he was reading this. We were both reading the same book, Fat Man, so we connected that way. And Steve was, you know, very nice too. So they kind of eased me, and Ethan kind of like, and Francis helped me out. So that was it, the night of the shooting, and we had no idea how the movie was going to turn out. I mean, but the script was hysterical, you know. So when the movie came out in '98, I'm trying to think of, there was a year where they have a premiere for us where one of the parents passed away, so they couldn't be there. It was a sad moment, mixed up thing. But Lebowski came and went, and nobody saw it. You know, it's like, and it was hysterical. I remember that because they let me get in the cutting room and I cut the scene where I was in, and I basically cut myself out as much as possible because I was shy. And they went, no, 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 no. So they put me back in, you know. And the coverage, I mean, one of my favorite shots is when I'm from behind the car, the windshield, and like say, I'll kill your fucking car, you know. And then that awesome, probably the best cut in the movie where you go to Santana, Oye Como Va, tan, 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 with the windshield gone, and they're eating the burgers from In-N-Out. So it's just like, and if you're from LA, you know what In-N-Out is. It's like, you know, the burger place. So the whole audience kind of loses it there. But I never experienced that until years later, 2000, I don't recall now, but it was the teens. A guy named Will Russell, which was one of the funders, called me about the Big Lebowski festival. And it started this whole, there are festivals everywhere in the world about this, in Europe, and it's in Amsterdam, in London, and there's some in Australia. I mean, this thing is like crazy. And to go to this thing and see people dressed as me, and you
Yeah.
know, which I'm a small little character, and it's like, wow. I mean, of course, there's thousands of dudes, thousands of what's her name? I didn't interact with what's her name, Julia Moore. Didn't have a scene with
Julianne
her.
Moore. Wow. Yeah.
So, but I knew her from other films that I worked before. Another lovely lady, but all these ladies dressed as her character. You know, all this, the Annihilus, a lot of, you know, Flea. Flea I knew also, but I didn't have a scene with him. Anyway, so it was just mind blowing to see. And then there were big theaters. They had the Wiltern and other ones in Beverly Hills were like packed. And then people lining up to take headshots with you and autograph. And it was just, and all these little characters in the movie will be there, you know. And at one time, I believe it was the last festival I went. It was, which is the photo that I have with him and my social media is with
Yep.
Jeff and I. That was the last festival. He came with his band, the Abiders, and that was awesome. And then we kind of sat in the audience to watch the movie, which I never done because it was always go crazy. And it was just, I haven't experienced anything like that since Rocky Horror back in
It's
the 80s.
interesting you bring that up. I will bring up a point because, you know, the Rocky Horror Picture Show was a massive success. And it was
Really,
a
really.
big, like I saw the Rocky Horror Picture Show 3 or 4 times on the big
Yeah.
screen, you know, and it's always interactive. But I always heard that, and again, this is just a rumor, but that Tim Curry was never really that into the whole Rocky Horror thing. He did it and he moved on to other things.
Right.
And it's really the movie he's most known for. What I
Right.
find interesting about the Big Lebowski and Lebowski Fest is Jeff Bridges totally embraces it and
Oh yeah.
shows up at these things.
Well, that's the brilliant casting of the Joel and Ethan. That you know, if you, I can't think of anybody else that can play that part. If you were given a choice, anybody in the world. I mean, um, I sometimes I can see like a Russell Crowe kind of like guy, laid back thing, but he's too angry for it. I mean, it's just nobody else can play that part but Jeff. That so that's the really. I mean, they didn't. My character is not that far from what you see in terms of like how easy I get upset. So they're smart that way, and then they're guys like Buscemi and Turturro. They can do anything, and Goodman also. So they cast people that are very close to what they see them playing in a way. So it's not a stretch. And then he loves it, totally loves it, and digs it, and tours around it. And like I said, he has his band that he plays, the Abiders. And unfortunately, the pandemic kind of put a hit on a stop on all that. I think they're
Hmm.
trying to get it going, and I thought that they recently, because it was originally, I think it was born the first time in Kentucky or somewhere in the east side. A guy
Hmm.
named Will Russell, I think he was one of the main founders, and then Will kind of like step off, and there's other guys trying to get it back on. But yeah, you're absolutely right, and I love that movie, Rocky Horror, too. When
Yeah.
I come from Venezuela to see a movie and see the people wearing the outfits, and I couldn't even hear the dialogue because there was all this interaction
I've
in
had
this.
Little Nell from that
Yeah,
movie on here a couple times.
yeah, and I just like
Yep.
okay, I had to rent it later to get it. And in the screening of the Big Lebowski, they don't because in Rocky Horror the audience was making their own answers to the characters. They're making up stuff. I don't think Lebowski has gotten there. Lebowski basically they read the lines as they've written, so it's different that way, so you can hear it. You know what I mean? And of course they crack up every time. It's just a different experience to watch it with them.
What I
It's really
found interesting too, there was a Super Bowl ad a few years back. It had, of course, Sarah Jessica Parker playing these character she plays in Sex and the City, going up to this bar and ordering martini or something, and
right.
then next it shows Jeff Bridges there as the dude shows up there, and stuff like that. And it was such a delightful commercial. But I love the fact that, I mean, he of course went on to do True Grit, also with the Coens, but I love the fact that he just embraces this role, like,
Yeah.
that he just loves it. I'm delighted in that.
Yeah, you meet him and you see him in an interview. That's who he is. Anyway, even
Hmm.
Crazy Hard, you see, I mean, I don't want to sound like, I mean, Jeff is one of the best actors, the American actors worldwide, in my
I
opinion.
agree.
And he can do whatever. I mean, it has such a long history. Sometimes I'm glad he finally got recognition because, along with his father and his brother, I mean, talk about royalty.
Oh, yeah, his father was an Airplane, and of course High
Yeah.
Noon, but Airplane, you can see where the sense of humor came from.
Yeah, but even before that, he was on a TV series. What's it called? The Diver. I forgot the name of it right now, which I watched as a child. Um, that's where he became famous. Floyd Bridges,
Hmm.
and then he pushes his kids to become actors, and then Jeff tells the story. I mean, if it wasn't for his dad, who started casting him as a kid, he would not have become an actor. And then it's nice that they can actually, in a way, Jeff probably took it to another level. I mean, because sometimes those iconic figures, kids cannot really reach that level and become something else. It's hard to live under that shadow, but not him. and then his daughters, have gone on to do something else, musicians and artists and stuff. Well, he's a wonderful guy, and I'm glad to hear that he's healthy now, and overcame the C word. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'm happy for him, and I can't wait to see whatever he does next. Well, even the show that he has on The Old Man, that's pretty nice. I like it. He's a totally different character there. You know.
Yeah, and Lebowski got, I mean, I'm not surprised, but it got totally overlooked by the Academy Awards. And I'm
Oh yeah,
kind of like, I know that Jeff Bridges won for Crazy Heart, which
right.
was about time, but it's kind of like, he should have been up for the Big Lebowski. I mean, I'm sorry, it's such an iconic performance.
Well, there's always been a complaint from the industry that comedic performance do not get the recognition that the dramatic ones do when it comes to Academy time. And there's been rumors about like the Golden Globes and other ones that they have categories, comedy, drama, whatever, because they get drowned in the drama. I mean, you don't find comedic actors winning Academy Awards. I mean, I think maybe Tom Hanks was the closest one with Forrest Gump, but wasn't a big fan of that movie. But he's the closest thing to comedy, and even Robin Williams when he played wasn't because of comedy. It was Dead Poet Society, which actually I work on that movie in the sound department too, so that was kind of fun to see that. And he's a Bay Area boy, so I know him from the Bay Area. But yeah, they don't reward a comedy performance, and it's always been a problem. And
Very rarely. I mean, Kevin Kline did for A Fish Called Wanda,
which was a
but I
fat.
mean,
He didn't
yep,
win. Did he win?
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that. But yeah,
he,
it was
he
supporting
won.
actor.
But yeah, he won supporting. But here's the thing though, like I mean, Kevin Kline is not a comedian, but he does know how to be funny,
Right, right.
So yeah, but again, you mentioned Robin Williams. I don't want to get sidetracked here. What was he like? I've heard all good things.
He's exactly like what you see. Peter Weir was another smart director that I worked with. I
Hmm.
did it with him, Witness, and then which my boss Tom Noble won an Academy Award for the Mosquito Coast down in Belize, which is funny with Harrison Ford.
Oh
We were at
wow.
we were at the Harrison Ford's yacht down in Belize watching the Academy Awards, and so Tom Noble winning for Witness. But he was there with us. We were on location. We couldn't be there. But um, so Peter knew about Robin's energy, kind of like his personality. So he would allow, and some of the directors copy this, Chris Columbus, whatever, he would allow Robin to ad lib for a while to get it out of the system. So then he can be who the character. So you always see at the beginning of the day, like Robin would like do his thing. Although Dead Boy Society was very different because it's such a dramatic part. It was not like most of the other movies that he was cast in. He was pretty much also ranting comedy things. But that's what and then he become the part, and he was very committed to that. Uh, you know, but he was a Bay Area boy, so he was in stand-up comedy in the local clubs, and it was a lightning of energy. That guy. It was just, I mean, I can't imagine Robin doing any speed because he was naturally like that. I thought, man, this guy does speed, he's gonna blow up because it's just, and what a brain, you know. I know they're kind of like lost.
Yeah, a major loss.
So
You
he
have
left.
any Harrison Ford stories?
Well, didn't have a whole lot of interaction because they were on location in the jungle
Hmm.
or we were in Belize, in the city with editing, and we were like totally working thousands and thousands of film. But I knew Harrison from the Raiders, and Lucas. So I would see him and when he'd come to do ADR, whatever. I mean, he's another fascinating character that everybody knows this now, that he was actually a woodworker at
Yep.
the when Marshall Lucas suggested it to Spielberg when he got the part. I mean, he was already given up as an actor. So, and I love what I love about him. He doesn't hide the fact, and he stays humble all the time, even though he's such an iconic figure. But if you meet him, he's a very quiet, kind of like shy guy, and very, very sweet, very professional as well. You know,
Yeah.
comes in and does his thing, and that's it. But you wouldn't think. I mean, none of these guys that like have this. I know when you get to know them and they have to protect themselves. But I see more of this going on with uh, the female actors because I guess they're more vulnerable physically about fans and whatever. But most of the guys, you know, that I know of, famous, they're kind of easy access, easy to get to, unless it's like a red carpet event or some kind of premiere. They have to like cover themselves, you know. But yeah,
Were you at the premiere for The Big Lebowski?
yeah. Well, no, they had a premiere in New York,
Mm-hmm.
basically with the cast and crew, and the one here was mostly for some of the people who work on it, but they didn't. The big stars were not in there. You know what I mean? So it was different. You know, it was a lower key kind of event, and it was, you know, it was nice too. I mean, we were all laughing. I mean, we thought that there was going to be, and then like nothing happens. I don't even remember what else was playing that year. And it's hard to predict with them which movies are going to be a hit and which aren't. And I don't think they expected the Lebowski to become this iconic thing that has become.
I
You know?
love that. Cult films are very interesting, and how people discover this or people discover that, because uh, Lebowski, it was one of those films, and this is always a delight when I go to a movie with no expectations, don't know what this is really about,
Right,
and then I'm blown away to the
right,
point where I got to go back and see it again. I love that. The Big Lebowski was one of those times for me.
right,
It's like I had so much fun. I had to show it to my brother whenever
right.
uh, that thing came out, and it's funny because I've since seen The Big Lebowski uh, at a midnight screening, and now it's like packed, and I'm like, where were these people back when the
Yeah,
movie came out, because I was there. I
right.
saw it when it came out.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I saw it at our theater, and anytime I get the chance to see a screening of it, I definitely go. And so I love the movie, and I love these movies where people can interact, like Rocky Horror, yeah, started that whole thing. But
Right.
boy, there's other movies that do that, with The Room most recently is one, and of course The Big Lebowski is one of those as well.
The Room? Did you say The Room?
Yeah, with Tommy Wiseau.
Oh, I don't know that one. I thought about.
Remember James Franco played Tommy Wiseau in The Disaster Artist?
Okay.
Well, it was based on the movie The Room, which
Okay.
is one of those movies that's one of the worst movies ever made, and that's part of what makes it so fascinating.
I see.
Yeah, there's movies like that, and and it just gained a cult following. And sometimes it's just interesting how some of these movies do that. And then we get the conventions. Do you outside Lebowski Fest, do you get to do the other conventions?
Well, you know, there's obviously the Comic Con thing down in San Diego, which has become such a crazy thing. But we were there many years ago. Was doing the series Entourage, and it was written in the script when Comic Con wasn't even famous. One of the characters played by what's his name, Dillon, was supposed to be this Viking thing, so he was going to go there to promote it. So we went there to shoot, you know, and this fake kind of icon there, and so I saw the Star Wars and Star Trek and all the Trekkies and all this stuff. I mean, I was like blown away by the size of it and the following. I mean, it's interesting. Sometimes they seem to be crazy to me. You know what I mean? But I mean, who are we to judge? I mean, Lebowski, of course, is kind of more based on real characters in a way, so it's easier to relate. We all know a guy like Walter. We all know a guy. Well, hopefully, we don't know a guy like Jesus, but some of the people in there. Although they're all pretty strange characters, and the nihilist and whatever. It's like the thing with LA is that so vast and so big that you can have all these layers. I mean, like what's his name? Boogie Night came out with the porn industry.
Oh, love it. Love
And then,
Boogie Nights.
so all these things that takes live and live in LA, there's the crime thing. And it's like all these layers. So you can actually believe that it's a Lebowski world in the bowling, in whatever, that it could be real. I gotta tell you a funny anecdote before we're done here is which I didn't know this. So I moved. A friend of mine bought these houses, and I moved in this area. As it was for a while. I mean, I'm still here. So the guy who used to be in this house sent me an email. Hey, do you know about your house and the Big Lebowski? And I'm like, what are you talking? I mean, he knew I was in the movie. Also an editor, but he was reality television. I said, no, what are you talking about? So the scene where Jeff Bridges is being chased by Joe Polito, who's smoking the little doobie, and he tries to throw it out the window. The window's closed and falls on his lap, and then he crashes on the dumpster.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it gets me goosebumps every time I tell you this. That's the street where I live on.
Oh, wow.
Many years later, I mean, I look at that scene because I want to see what my street used to look like. But the tree, when you watch the scene on DVD or whatever, on the DVR, just pause in there, you can see these big eucalyptus trees. That tree is where this house is. So I told Joel and Ethan this story years later. They couldn't believe it. I mean, totally no connection. But again, when things like this happen, you start wondering about, is there or isn't there a connection? I mean, like, that a guy who was in the movie ended up moving to the house that is part of the location in the movie that he was in. And I'm talking about, this is 97 that we shot the movie, came out in 98. And this, I moved into this place 2000. I've been here now for 9 years, so 2016 or something like that, 14. So it's pretty crazy. And I pause it and I go, I mean, it's totally different now, the street, and a lot of buildings have been knocked down. But this house with this tree, you can still see it there, right behind the dumpster when he crashes. So that's where I live right now.
I know. Yeah. I know John Turturro went and he did not a sequel, but kind of his own. I haven't seen it, but his own spin-off movie about the Jesus. And
not a big fan of that movie. One of his producers was a disgusting Venezuelan character that stole money from the government down there. So I was never a big fan of that sequel.
I never seen it, but
it's bad. It's pretty bad. I saw it because I was very curious, but anyway, I'm glad it didn't do well.
well, a lot of people have been wanting a sequel to The Big Lebowski, and I know the cast, including Jeff Bridges, are open to it. Now, I understand the Coen brothers; they usually a one and done with movies, and they've created so many masterpieces, some wonderful characters in every movie they do.
Right.
But I'm kind of sitting here thinking, if anybody can pull off a sequel to The Big Lebowski without repeating the same plot, you'd think the Coen brothers would be able to do that.
Well, if you know them, and I'm not saying this to brag about it or to say I know some say you don't, but I do, is that's not their style. I mean, they have so many ideas, so many things in their head, that's just not who they are. Even with the closest thing that comes to me is being Fargo, the television series, which is, if you haven't seen it, it's a masterpiece also. I mean, but they had nothing to do with it. I believe one of the line producers, Cameron, was part of it as an executive producer, but towards the end, it was taken over by other people who had done a masterful job in following the style of Fargo. You know what I mean? The heavy winters, and I mean, you know how hard it is, just like it was Robin Williams to make Chris Rock be good at dramatic. Chris Rock, you should watch it. Have you seen this series?
I haven't. No, I don't
Oh,
actually have television. I just will have
oh,
a thing to watch my Blu-rays on.
but you can stream it. You
Mhm.
can stream it. Fargo, I believe it's on Netflix or something like that.
Okay.
Uh, but every year, so they come out with the premise, but every year is a different every series. So I think they're in the fourth or fifth year, and they're being fantastic. Some amazing guest appearances. Have been Jesse Plemons was in there with Kirsten Dunst. I mean, who's his wife now. The very first one, I can't remember who was cast on it, but they're really well done at the style of the Coen brothers. And then they're all new. This guy, I think the creator, showrunner is a guy named Noah Raleigh, which is amazing, showrunner as well. He has some very interesting other projects out there that I would love to work with. I mean, the editing is fascinating, and it's just really well done. But no, Joel Newton, like I said, I think they begrudgingly let John Turturro do his thing because of the friendship, whatever. But they just don't want any part of that,
Hmm.
of the sequel thing. And I don't know if he'll sell the rights for somebody. I think they might be afraid of somebody will screw it up.
You know
Maybe somebody,
what? I bet somebody would screw it up too. Like,
yeah,
it's got to be done by the Coens if it's done at all. You
right,
know. But
exactly.
yeah, but they still come out with some terrific stuff. I mean, like even 15 years ago on its 15th anniversary, Burn After Reading was really funny.
Right.
So I mean, I've had a lot of fun seeing a lot of these movies in the theater, and some of them I've seen on retrospectives, like Blood Simple I saw
Right.
on a special screening. So I always check out the Coen brothers when they have a movie out.
Oh yeah, they're
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely.
Can't
I
wait for what they're gonna do next. It's always intriguing, you know.
I was going to ask, what's the most unique thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Ah, well, it's being, breast. A lady wanted me to sign my name on for the movie on her breast.
Hmm.
One asked me to sign it on her butt. Uh, there's people, bowling balls and things like that. But yeah, that's the closest thing as being, the breast in terms of crazy. And they were saying they were gonna take out tattoo artists and kind of like
Oh
go
yeah.
over it. Like, okay, I'm not. There's some people who had some icons of the movie tattooed in their bodies, and you see them in there by bowling pins and the dude buys and things like that. And then funny, we have American football here, as you know, and so we play fantasy football. And my league is called the Dudes. So all the teams are named based on characters of the movie. So mine, of course, is "I Kill Your Fucking Card" is my name. Other one is like Mott's Bieber, or like they're funny names that they're like they steal from characters or lines in the movie. So the 10 teams that's the team on it, which I thought it was funny. It's the closest thing to a sequel that I will ever see with them. But yeah, and the movie is still so iconic. I mean, you've noticed something new every time
Hmm.
that you see it in many ways. And,
Absolutely. I want to touch on your editing. Do you
well,
want to, is there, like you're into editing and I did get to deep dive on this. I do have your IMDb up here, but is there any projects that stand out to you that stuff you've edited on that you want to touch upon?
well, I mean, uh, that's a good question. I mean, I've been part of some big films as an assistant, as an
Mhm.
editor. I mean, I was kind of following the path of my mentors at the time. This guy named Tom Novel, and then another famous editor is Walter Murch.
Hmm.
who did a lot of the Francis movies, and George, Alan Splett, who passed away. So I got a lot of influence from all these people. And then also venture on my own. One of the reasons why I left the Bay Area, because there weren't many chances for me to be a picture editor. Because the one thing about picture editing that fascinates me is it's the last stage of the process that you are able to affect the storytelling. I
Hmm.
mean, you write a movie, you shoot a second, and you edit a third. And now they're saying you distribute a fourth. But I mean, the distribution doesn't affect the film, but the editing, you can really reshape it, retell it, switch, tell it, restructure it, do all kinds of things. So it'd been interesting. I worked many years ago. I mean, my very first film, it was one called The Last Supper. Has always been my kind of like favorite, my baby, because it was my very first film. I was actually shooting in Nova Scotia, The Scarlet Letter,
Oh, wow.
with Demi Moore and Gary Oldman, whom I knew as a friend from Dracula and other films. I mean, that was a very funny story, because I didn't want to go to what was the name again? I forgot now. As I
Nova
said,
Scotia.
Nova Scotia. I was there, and on the docks in the terrible winter, and we all had these mansions because most people, and during the winter they rent them. So there was like bored, nothing to do over there. There was only one restaurant in the little town, so I was sort of like dying of boredom. And finally, my boss, which was Tom, said to me, why don't you go to LA and cut this promo reel? And they gave me the script for this movie, The Last Supper. So, and I read it, and I had to do it. And so it's kind of like still applies. It's kind of like a very, political, an assembly cast with Cameron Diaz was the most famous at the time, but we get appearances by Mark Hamill and by Jason Alexander from Seinfeld. So, and you can rent it or check it out. It's pretty funny, and it still applies, with this political situation. Nothing as crazy as this. I don't think if somebody would have written a script of what's going on in the world right now, especially in America, they would have told them that it was crazy and it was never possible. And here we are, So, but anyway,
Well,
back to the question. The Last Supper, and another
yeah.
film called The Whole Wide World, which is another one of my favorite, and then Another Day in Paradise with Larry Clark, who
Hmm.
became very famous with kids. That was another one that had a lot of fun memories right before kind of electronic editing took over. My last kind of like film cutting film, because the old school of film, it was funny because you have to think about editing in terms like every time you will cut something, you cannot undo it. Right now you can do Apple C and you undo it, and it's like nothing ever happens, because every time you made a cut on film, it will be left there forever. You know what I mean? So it has
Hmm.
that finality to it. But and recently, my career has turned into the television world, which has become this kind of like sausage factory. I mean, there was a series that I love called Promised Land, which was one of the Latino cats, assemblies that I was very proud of. There's a family in the Bay Area that it was making wine, and all the characters were played by Latinos. And it's always a struggle, which I always wanted to be part of, is the Latino community in the industry, which we keep being overlooked. Like all the minorities have their turn, African Americans, and then recently the Asian, population, with everything, everywhere at once, which not a big fan, but it's what it is. And now I think it's our turn, the Latino community, to be recognized, especially I mean, we're 20% of the population. We're so underrepresented in
Hmm.
front and behind the camera. So I'm trying to be part of that. So right now I'm working on a film that I really love called Mistura, which is a period piece about Peru, Peruvian society back then, which is very repressed. It kind of follow the story of a woman trying to break, whose husband left her, and she trying to like kind of like recover or save her. What do you say? Make up her life. And became a fan of Peruvian food. I mean, the Peruvian food have become an iconic thing on the cooking world these days. I don't know if you're familiar with, but because they have Japanese influence and a lot of seafood, so they influence a lot of the best restaurants in the world right now. So I love this little movie. I don't know if that answered your questions. The other one has been, a lot of TV shows. I really miss working on features. That's kind of like my favorite. I also love documentaries, but those are very difficult to make, and the salaries are really bad. So you kind of like have to juggle between making a living and doing something fun. And the best marriage is make a living while you do something fun. That's when you're in heaven.
You
So
have I was gonna
yeah,
say you got a lot of other feature films where you're editor too, like Godfather 3,
yeah.
Body of
Well,
Evidence,
I was an assistant.
Maverick.
Yeah, I was assistant on those.
Hmm.
I was working for somebody else, but yeah, that's how I learned the task,
Hmm.
working with those films. But it hasn't really manifested to me to work on those big kind of films. They had some success on festivals, whatever, and I'm still hopeful. But the skill is there, and now the connection. I mean, it has to do a lot to do nowadays. Like everything is who you know. A lot of directors also like to work with the same person that they work with to create that trust, and I don't blame them. I had a stable of directors that I was working with. The one from The Last Supper sadly passed away of ALS, and the guy from the whole
I
Stacy.
lost my dad to ALS in 2022. He
Yeah,
battled it for 8 years. Yeah.
yeah, she battled it, but it was fast, man. And one of my favorite people, one of the smartest ladies I ever met, a person in general. She just came and went. And then Don Ireland, another one of my favorite directors, died of a heart attack, totally unexpected. So two of my four favorite directors passed away. So I was left like a little short-handed. So now I had to create new relationships with new director, which is a little harder as you get older. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But I'm working on it and trying to do more features that I can, because like I said, the TV is more like a producer's environment, which is all these executives trying to make decisions based on not losing their job. While in features, you do have somebody's vision that you try to help and accomplish. So that's why I like that. Or documentaries, somebody has a cause they want to promote, or some problem they want to call attention to. So those are kind of my favorite thing. But I love it. I still, get lost when I'm in front of the footage and left on my own devices to make it happen. So it's still a joy.
Well, before as we get down to the closing moments, I was just wondering, do you have a web page or any charities that you would like to plug and promote on here?
Well, it's very nice of you to ask. No, I'm not prepared. I wasn't prepared. I realized I wasn't prepared for this at all. And it's happened to me before. There was a guy who was doing a documentary about the Big Lebowski, who loved, me telling the stories about the casting and all that, and didn't amount to anything. You should check it out. I think I want to figure out, but if you Google it or go to YouTube, I think you might be able to find it there. There's a guy who made a documentary about the Big Lebowski, and he got some really funny story. I'm in it as well with a little more hair. Um, but I'm basically want to plug in, the opportunities for the Latin brothers and sisters out there to be given a chance in front or behind the camera, and that there's a lot of talented people. We're tired of being stereotyped and cast, tired of being the drug dealers and the criminals or whatever. We can be accomplished doctor. I mean, there's some of us have gone to space now, and
Did you
there's
see
some.
Blue Beetle?
Yeah, I saw glances. No, I haven't seen all of it, but that looks fun.
Yeah,
Recently I
that
saw
yeah.
Eva Longoria's Flaming Hot was pretty nice, about the guy who came out with the Flaming Hot Cheetos kind of thing story. Um, yeah, the one message that I have, and I don't know how many Latinos will see this, we need to embrace each other. We have a bad habit among Latinos of backstabbing each other rather than help each other. Like the
Mhm.
other communities and minorities that have moved forward, I noticed that they help each other. The African American community support each other, even though they compete with each other. The Asian American community does too, and so is the Arabs, Armenian, all of them. But us Latinos, I don't know what is wrong with us. There's like this kind of competition and jealousy that like they all want to be the first one there, so they're like want to knock it down or backstab people, and we need to change that culture and embrace the somebody else's accomplishment. It reflects well on all of us, and if we get there, one of us get there, it will open the doors to all of us to get there. So just to embrace that and to help each other and support each other, that will be, and then you can find me on IMDb if you want to see the work that I've done. I mean, Joel and Ethan, in a footnote, they were angry at me in a way because I didn't really pursue more acting because they thought, that I should have done that because they thought I had what it took to do that. And my blind ambition to edit, kind of like deprive that. There were some of my friends cast me in little parts. After the Coen brothers did it, they started seeing that side of me. Oh, he can act too, you know what I mean? So part of me wishes that I could pursue some of that too as well. But it's never too late. I can still smash cars somewhere. But I mean, it's fun to do that. And I want to thank you for persisting and pursuing me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep. Oh, well, you know what? It's an honor and a pleasure to have you come on here today and talk about this film. I love this movie. It's one of my favorite films of the 90s,
right.
and I still enjoy it. Actually, when I was in Toronto last, I actually showed it to a friend of mine down there, so who hadn't seen it. So and she really enjoyed it. So yeah, I love the Big Lebowski, and I hope it continues to find an even bigger audience, So
Yeah.
yeah.
If you,
Anyway, uh
yeah. No, you see all these people having weddings with Lebowski's motive in there. They have the babies being born into all this, in the rugs. I mean, this thing has exploded into this world that is creating, is passing generation to generation. I mean, even bigger now than Rocky Horror in a way, because Rocky Horror becomes a seasonal thing on the Halloween because of the characters are wearing,
hmm
costumes, but Lebowski, people are being real, so it's all year round. You know what I mean? So go ahead. So,
Absolutely. Well, before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
no, no, no. How would I do that?
Just state your name and say that we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Big Lebowski, and then follow that up with you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Well, let me see if I remember all that. So, hi there. My name is Luis Colina. I play the Red Corvette owner in the Big Lebowski, which is celebrating the 25th anniversary of his release, believe it or not. And I want to promote and help my friend Brett Pfizer and thanking him for insisting me on doing this interview. And I would like to also refer to his website again. What's the name of it again, Greg?
Python's Paradise.
Python's Paradise. I'm looking forward to this. Hopefully, I won't throw up when I see myself. But
Oh, come on. If you haven't thrown up looking at me, then you're good.
well, you got the bandana and the background. I'm gonna have to, but that's a good thing. But thank
Yeah,
you. Did I do okay with that?
you did great with that. My cat lives with me, and he said as long as I give him treats, he won't throw up looking at me.
So you do this once a week?
This well, I used to do this at the station on the university. I used to do them by phone at the station, and when the bug happened, things went into lockdown, and it was one of my other guests that introduced me to Zoom. And
Oh,
I'm
okay.
like, wow, this now I can do these at my apartment, and and I do whenever I have an interview. I did one yesterday, and
Cool.
yeah, so Or actually, it was the day before yesterday. I did one, and it's whenever I have them. Sometimes I have several a month, and sometimes I have a few, and and
Yeah.
I work as a cleaner, so yeah, so I was working through the whole bug situation, and but I'm
Cool.
happy to do this. This is I was looking forward to this, so I'm glad that we were able to make it work, and glad you're out there still continuing to wreck cars with crowbars.
Yes. Well, thank you, Greg. Thank you for inviting me to this.
Absolutely. And when this is ready, I'll send you the link.
Sounds good.
All
Take
right.
care. Be safe.
Absolutely. God bless. And remember, the dude abides.
Goodbye, dude. I'm just gonna keep sipping my coffee here.
Absolutely. Take care.